Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at Europe's summer weather. And what's actually brewing for the end of June, say June 21st to the 29th, 2025. We've gone through a whole range of meteorological sources, some really cutting-edge stuff to try and get you the clearest picture. So our mission today, unpack the big stories. We're talking potential heat waves, widespread ones, and also those more localized storm risks over in Eastern Europe, Western Russia, that kind of area.
Yeah, and this specific time frame, late June, it's really critical. Think about emergency services, agriculture, planning needs these insights. But it's important for you to remember these long-range things. They give us probabilities, trends, not, precisely what happens each day. The atmosphere is chaotic fundamentally, but we can see strong signals.
Okay, right. Let's unpack that. The bigger picture for summer 2025. It looks like one of the warmest globally, consistently projected that way. But here's the really interesting bit. This is happening even though the Pacific is shifting towards La Nina. And La Nina, well, it usually has a bit of a cooling effect globally, right? So record warmth, despite that, that's significant.
It really is. And the why behind it is fascinating. It just highlights how overwhelming the influence of anthropogenic greenhouse gases has become. They're so strong now they can pretty much override or at least really dampen down natural variations like La Nina. It's like the planet has this background fever now driven by us that natural cooling factors just can't shake off anymore. That human-driven warming is the dominant player.
Wow. Permanent fever. That's quite an image. So, okay, the heat wave risk for this specific period, June 21st to 29th, with that background warmth that seems like a major heat event is, well, highly likely across a big chunk of Europe. We're talking forecasts showing temperatures soaring past 40 Celsius in the south, Spain, Portugal, and pushing, well into the mid-30s across France, Benelux, Germany, Italy too. That's serious heat.
Sustained heat. And it's not just like a random event anymore. If you look at the longer trends, studies from the UK Met Office, for example, they show the chance of hitting 40 degrees C in the UK is now, over 20 times more likely than back in the 60s. They're even saying it's maybe a 50-50 shot within the next 12 years or so. Wow. And heat waves are lasting longer too, not just quick bursts.
Right, sticking around for longer. So while lots of Europe deals with that intense heat, there's this other, almost opposite thing happening further east. Eastern Europe, Western Russia, the North Caucasus. Let's shift there. The really extreme storms, maybe like those level 3 tornadoes we saw earlier in June, perhaps they've peaked, but this period still looks prone to frequent but more localized thunderstorms.
Exactly. And here's where it gets a bit counterintuitive with the rain. Generally, the trend for Central and Eastern Europe is towards drier conditions, more drought risk. However, these localized storms, they can still dump a lot of rain quickly, heavy downpours, hail, strong winds. So you get this awful paradox. Flash floods hitting areas that are actually really dry overall. The rain isn't spread out nicely. It's just intense, uneven bursts.
Broken sprinkler system, sort of.
Right.
Causing problems, not solving the drought.
Precisely. They don't really help with the widespread dryness, just cause local damage.
So what's driving these patterns, these intense kind of contrasting situations? Often the oceans, right? We're seeing these marine heat waves. Mediterranean sea temperatures are way up, like 1.5 to 1.8 Celsius above normal. That's huge. And the North Atlantic heat content is also helping build these persistent high-pressure ridges over Europe.
Yeah, these ridges act like a block. They trap warm, dry air, steer storms away from some areas, contributing to both the heat waves and the uneven storm tracks further east.
So implications. What does all this mean on the ground?
Well, they're pretty significant, really. Public health is a big one. Heat stress, mortality risks. Then there's infrastructure, transport, power grids, they get strained. Agriculture obviously faces drought and potential storm damage. And fire risk definitely goes up with the heat and dryness. But even with the dryness, those localized storms, as we said, still bring risks of flash floods, property damage, very immediate impacts.
Okay, so pulling it together, Europe's facing this kind of double threat. Big heat, especially south, central, east. But then these pockets of intense localized storms in the east, even while it's generally dry. It's complex.
It is complex. And these patterns, you have to remember, are being seriously amplified by the underlying climate change trends. It just makes being prepared, continuous monitoring absolutely vital, which I think raises a really important question for all of us. How do we actually keep adapting? How do we build resilience to these weather extremes, both the widespread heat and the localized storms, especially as they seem to be getting more frequent, maybe less predictable?
That's a critical question. Something for you to think about. Stay informed, stay curious. And thanks for joining us for this deep dive.